that can inhibit the learning process and how that is probably the largest stumbling blocks. Examples available on request, but I don't want to bore everyone.
All right, great. And then Jennifer Sprague.
Yes, I am from Arizona Summit Law School, and my presentation will be called Suppose the Class Began the Day the Case Walked in the Door, about a subject matter integrated class with torts and civil procedure both in the first year, as well as a year-long litigation simulation, which of course is a bunch of stuff put together that unless you were changing curriculum you wouldn't do. But there are exactly individual items that we did that I think can be useful in even the traditional doctrinal classroom, and so anyway, that's going to be what it's about.
Great. And then Julie Donegal. How do you pronounce your last name?
Gunnagle, although I'll answer to just about everything.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm also from Arizona Summit Law School. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Nancy. My topic is the need for speed, the most important skill that law school doesn't teach. And it's about how in legal writing classrooms, it's not just enough to get your students to write with accuracy and brevity, but that we also need to teach them an efficient composition process such that when they arrive in the real world, they're able to compose everything we've taught them how to write efficiently.
Great. And then Kristen?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm Chris T Shoni from Georgetown Law School, and I teach legal research and writing also. And I am going to be, I think I want to snazz up the title of my talk because I'm not exactly sure what it is at the moment, but I'm going to be talking about focusing in teaching fundamental skills, specifically legal research and writing, on shifting an emphasis from really arrangement to invention, and by that I mean injecting more theory on analytical reasoning forms than I think is currently part of first-year legal research and writing courses.
Nice. It seems like there's a lot of legal writing people doing very innovative things, so we're lucky to have so many of you here.
Thank you.
And then Lexi Freeman.
Hi, this is Lexi. I have no voice, so I promised to have one in March. So I apologize that I sound like this. But our talk is on, the title right now, which could be a working title, is A New Way to Talk About Race in the Law, Collaboration, Interconnection, and the New Jim Crow. And essentially what we're talking about is a collaborative effort by a group of faculty that span different faculty lines, so clinical, externship, and doctrinal, about using the book, Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, with a rotating faculty model where different faculty teach each class and bring their expertise to the classroom in an effort to expose students to critical race theory and the range of folks who have expertise in this in the school, and also use a single nonfiction book as a framing device. And it's been a real, I think, we've done, this is our second semester now, it's been a real delightful experience for faculty collaboration, and also I think a real community builder for students who may sometimes feel marginalized in law school because there are fewer of them interested in these issues. So we're excited to talk about it. And I'm from the University of Denver, Sturm College of Law. I work in the, I'm Director of Public Interest and normally a teacher in the externship program.
I'm assuming that the model also of this be used for other courses as well, not just this one particular.
Yes, for sure, for sure. We'll be speaking on our individual experience, but yes, the collaboration.
Yeah, that would be great. Like if you could help the audience recognize how this is a model that we could be thinking about for other topics also.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks.
And then Michael Colatrella.
My name is Michael Colatrella, and I'm from the Pacific McGeorge Law School in Sacramento, California. And my talk is called What I Learned About Law Teaching from Being an Art Student. And it really explores going back to be a student and learning a difficult skill and what I learned about how I presented and taught skills in my own course. I typically teach negotiation, mediation, and ethics. Those are my primary courses, and a clinic class as well. And so, so I'm just trying to take some of the lessons I learned from going back and being a skills student and try to transfer them to being a better teacher.
Great. Paula Schaefer?
Yeah, this is Paula. Paula Schaefer. I'm at the University of Tennessee. My topic is tips for finding the attorney professionalism lessons hiding in plain sight in every casebook. And I'm going to talk to professors who want to use their old tried and true doctrinal casebook but are open to integrating more talk about what attorneys do, how attorneys serve clients, how they comply with their ethical duties, and how they can act consistent with the values that we expect of lawyers. So it's really about preparing people for practice and doing it with the casebooks that we have already. So I'm going to talk about looking for opportunities using the cases that are already in people's casebook to find the professionalism issues and make it part of the class discussion.
Yeah, that's exciting. Welcome, Paula. R.A. I don't know who R.A. is.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. My name is Allie. That's my initials. And I'm with American. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm with American International University, and I focus on health law, but specifically right now, alternative dispute resolution, specifically online. We have created a database at as in boy, rav.org, brave.org. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. And my presentation is on when community-driven sites thrive, where we take research from Wikipedia and other community-driven sites like Yahoo Answers and others, and try to help people find a better way to resolve conflicts online now. So I heard just Michael speaking about mediation being one of his fortes. I'd love to hear from him and just the rest of you if you guys can give me feedback on the site. Thanks.
Great. Welcome. And then Ruth Ann.
Hi. I'm sorry, I can't see all the settings, so I didn't realize which order we were going in. So I'm paired with T Shoni, and when she's doing analysis, I'll then be following up with the client-centeredness of legal writing, which is how many of us are moving and believe that legal writing should move much more towards client-centeredness and really be about practice. And specifically, I will talk about putting the client and persuasion into places like the headings and the rule statements, saying how are we going to write these things using stock structure words, Gerald Lopez, things like that, that cognitively prime the reader towards the advocacy that's going to come later in what legal writing would call the application section. The advocacy shouldn't all happen 4 pages into the argument. It should be right up front in those opening parts. And how do we do that? How do we cognitively prime for the client?
Mm-hmm. That's exciting. And are you guys going to, is it one talk, or are you going to, have you figured that out yet? Are you going to do 2 separate talks?
Two separate, well, the way we wrote the proposal is 2 separate shorter talks.
Great, okay. And then Shannon?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Shannon Salter, and I am an adjunct professor of administrative law at the University of BC in Vancouver. And I'm also the chair of what will be Canada's first online administrative tribunal called the Civil Resolution Tribunal. And it's interesting to hear, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch the RA, who RA was. It's a bit loud where I am, but it sounds like your project is really interesting because a large part of the Civil Resolution Tribunal is online dispute resolution, backed by adjudication as a last resort. You can have a look at our website too. It's civilresolutionbc.ca, and it outlines how the tribunal will work when it becomes operational later this year. But my topic is really how can we teach students to be better law reformers by helping them detach from this preoccupation with precedent and separate the value of precedent when it comes to legal principles, but really freeing them to think more creatively when it comes to the process by which we give effect to those principles. this is something I've come across both in teaching and also in my role in the tribunal, that it's really hard to manage the change in our profession around new ways of delivering justice services. And so I think that starts in the classroom, and I'd like to talk about ways that we can challenge students to do that there.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Great, welcome. And then Shawn Jansen.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Shawn Jansen from Concord Law School, Kaplan University. The title of my speech is Getting Out of the Way, Students Preparing Themselves for the Future of Law Practice, and it's about the course I developed called Future of Law Practice, and kind of how that all evolved, and the idea of preparing students without adding an entire year of material. So it's just one class, but it's an opportunity for the students really to shine and grab a hold of issues that they're interested in to try and move their careers and their future forward.
Yeah. It sounds like an interesting course. And Susan?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my talk right now is called A Few Very Important Things to Consider to Make Sure Your Graduates Are 21st Century Researchers. That might be a little long.
It doesn't fit in a tweet. We need something that fits in a tweet.
Okay, so I'm down to 140 characters. Great. That'll shorten it. And this is about two things, really. You know, one is about the fact that all of our students need legal research instruction, regardless of whether they do policy or traditional legal work or are reformers. And I think it is important to think about the different things that students can do. But the other half of it is that we have to prepare for the reality of the way some of these students are going to be doing legal research. And I think that we are doing ourselves a disservice by emphasizing Westlaw and Lexis and things like that too much. Everyone doesn't have access to those, and when they don't, I fear that they do nothing. And that's based on a study that was done here at Colorado Law by a professor named Scott Moss about bad briefs and what happens with bad briefs. And he did an empirical study basically showing that a very significant percentage of people who are working in an employment discrimination area in very large urban areas where there's a variation in the quality of schools, students, graduates, and firms that are representing things are not doing any research in their briefs, and they're losing at pretty high rates. So this is about incorporating the lowest common denominator teaching into legal research and making sure that students are entirely aware of the free resources that are available, with, of course, adequate warnings about the fact that they're not perfect. But in this particular legal instance that I'm talking about, a 5-minute Google Scholar search would have improved everyone's brief 100%.
That's very interesting. And Tina Stark?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have retired from teaching as of 12/31 last year, so I'm not from anywhere, but I was the founding executive director of Emory's Center on Transactional Law and Practice, where we created an 8-course certificate program to prepare students to practice transactional law. It had 5 doctrinal courses and 3 skills courses. But the program went beyond teaching doctrine and skills. It was very much about how to transition students from law school to practice. And one of the things that we heard repeatedly from partners is that students didn't know how to partners or to clients. They were either overly formal or too informal, hi, we're best buds, because they would get mixed signals. It was an open door first name policy, but yet there was an employer-employee relationship nonetheless. And one of the ways that we dealt with that was by having students call us by our first names. And most of our teachers were adjuncts, partners at other firms. So we very much modeled the relationship. And I'm going to explain why calling professors by their first name actually has a sound pedagogic basis.
I like it. I find that I've kind of evolved in my own experience, but when I was a young woman professor, close in age to my students, it's really hard to do. So it'll be interesting.
I'm going to give that as an exception, and it's really, and I think there are multiple exceptions to it, and I will discuss that.
Yeah, great. So I think we have some other people joining. Who else do we need to hear from? Is Sarah Bower there? Okay. Is Nancy Miller?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
This is Nancy Millar. I'm with Arizona Summit Law School. So my topic is called the rewrite loop. And essentially what it is teaching perseverance while also teaching writing skills and how to integrate edits and feedback from a professor or a supervising attorney. And so I do this by having students essentially rewrite an assignment until it's A-quality work. And so that might mean 1 rewrite, that might mean 10 rewrites, but the goal is to have every student integrating all of the feedback and all of the edits into their final product until their final product is high enough quality, sufficient quality. Thanks.
Okay, great. So have we heard from everyone?
I'm actually Sarah Bower, and I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you. Who is it? Can you just say your name again?
Sarah Bower.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Okay.
I'm actually one of the student presenters at the conference, and I'm talking about engendering success in ADHD and kinesthetic learners in law schools, and I'll be discussing a variety of teaching methods that professors can use in the law schools and also what students can do as they're learning and studying their materials through the semester.
Well, welcome, Shannon. All right, is that everyone? Okay, so as you can see, we have a really good group of people with a lot of very interesting and innovative ideas. I thought that we could spend the last half of this webinar talking about the conference, the expectations, the timing, things like that. And so if anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to jump in, or you can send a chat to the group. If you don't want to talk, you can send a text to the group. But let me just get started. So, okay. So I just wanted to start by giving everyone a little bit of a background about what kind of the mission and the goals are of LegalED and this conference. So basically, LegalED was started by a group of professors, and the group, of course, that supports it is growing year after year. But our initial intention, and it continues to be our goal, is to help professors as we transition to a new model of legal education, and to do it in a really collaborative way so that we can create a database using online technology as a place where people can share ideas about how they're teaching, what they're teaching, and then also share the teaching materials. So the focus of the site is a collection of teaching videos that people have made in terms of flipping the classroom. And as we started developing that collection, we realized that there were a lot of people who wanted more instruction, more ideas about how to be innovative in the classroom. So we decided that we would organize this conference, Igniting Law Teaching, as a way to showcase all the innovations that are happening and to use innovative technologies to do so, which is why we we style it as a TEDx conference, and we create videos that can then be available online. But the idea is that we want to use technology to maximize teaching and learning. That I don't know that it's necessarily looking at the future as being entirely online. I mean, my view of the future of education generally is blended learning, where we have a combination of online resources, online technologies that help to supplement what happens in face-to-face settings. But we'll see what the future holds, right? And then also that it's a very inclusive community that's focused on sharing and collaborating. So that's basically who we are. And we're really lucky because the Uncommon Individual Foundation, which is the organization that Ben works for, has kind of adopted this as one of the projects that they've been supporting. So over last year, Ben started to work with me, and now he's working as an intern when he was still in college, and now he's graduating from college. He continues to work at the Uncommon Individual Foundation, and they provide us with all the support, including supporting us on this conference call and the conference and everything. So the goals of the conference, as I said, was to continue the conversation. So it started last year with the first of what we hope will be many conferences, and to incorporate new ideas for teaching and learning, and to think about, there's a push at the ABA level of incorporating more learning outcomes and competencies and assessment into our curriculum. So I see LegalED as a way also to facilitate that, as we're all kind of in this new mode of thinking about how we teach and what the learning outcomes are and how we're going to measure those outcomes. I'm thinking that instead of everyone doing it individually, we could use LegalED as a platform to share ideas and to keep that conversation going. And then to, of course, build a community and network of like-minded legal educators, which we're doing through these conferences and other things. And so the next question is, why did we adopt the TEDx format? I personally am a big fan of TED, and I've actually organized 2 conferences on my campus at Villanova, 2 TEDx conferences, and I'll be organizing a 3rd next year. But I like the format because I find that with a little bit of practice and rehearsal up front, we can really create material that goes beyond the people who are in the room at a particular conference. So one of the things that technology helps us to do, which we learn through flipped classes and a lot of other things, is that we're not necessarily only talking to the people in the room. Like if we use technology and we do it in a nice way, thinking that the audience is beyond the people in the room, then we can start sharing our ideas in a much broader constituency. And I feel like, we've had a lot of success in that regard with respect to the videos from the first conference. So as I mentioned, Warren's video has been viewed, I think, close to 1,000 times, and it's making its way among different faculties in the United States. And so, it's rare, even at a AALS conference, for there to be that many people in a room. And even if they are, there's no way to go back and look at it again and think about it in the context of how it can help you in your teaching. So that's another benefit of doing it in this format. I also, must say that I have this larger, loftier goal of trying to influence the way that law conferences are run. And so I have been talking to AALS, and I'm on the planning committee for this year's AALS Clinical Conference in the hope of bringing kind of new ideas to how we structure law conferences. So it's not only talking heads sitting at a podium, but we start thinking about how to make the talks more dynamic and more exciting. So another goal is to inspire innovation, which I think that format does. And then when I say here build on the craft of teaching, I think that there is a craft of teaching, and that, you know, what we're doing when we do a TED Talk like this is to model what is good teaching. Like, what do people want to see, and what do they, you know, want in their own time go on to YouTube and find this video and watch it, because it's good teaching. And so part of what we're trying to do through this process is, I think, to model what others can be doing in terms of teaching and learning. And also because it's fun, which I have a lot of fun. In the conference that we had last year, there was a lot of energy and excitement and enthusiasm about this new format. So hopefully it's working. So what does this mean for you guys, for the speakers, for the presenters? What it means for you is that you're going to need to really refine what you want to say so that you can fit it into a short period of time. And it's possible. You'll see, you know, if you take time watching the talks from last year, if you watch TED Talks, you can see that you can learn a lot of information in a short period of time. But I think what it means is that much more time goes into preparation than is typical of presenting at a conference. So what we're going to do is try to provide you with as many resources as possible to help you during that preparation process, and to even, you know, create opportunities for you guys to practice among yourselves before you get to DC. We're really fortunate because this year, I don't know how many, but I would say about 5 of the presenters who will be presenting this year presented last year. And then some of the people from last year have also volunteered to be coaches this year. So, so there'll be opportunities for you to learn from others and hear, you know, what worked in terms of preparing and stuff. But it means that it has to, you know, that you're going to rehearse, that it will either be scripted or, you know, some people don't feel comfortable talking directly from a script or memorizing a script. But, you know, you will have thought about what you want to say, in what order, what your, you know, takeaway lines are. You probably memorize your first line and your last line and have that all structured. It means that for most of you, you'll be standing without a podium. There might be people who are not comfortable doing that for any particular reason, and we can get seating if you need it. But the preference, you know, the kind of the standard would be that you're standing without a podium, and that we encourage you to use graphics in your presentations. And if you're going to have PowerPoint, that's great, or Prezi, whatever you want to use, Keynote. But what I want to encourage is that it's not necessarily like you have your whole talk on the board and you're just reading it to the audience. So the goal is, if you're going to do a presentation, that you keep the words on each presentation, you know, on each slide to 5 words or less, and that it's mostly visual. So what that means is, if you're going to use graphics that you haven't yourself created, just make sure that you have permission to use them, because it's going to go up on YouTube and video. I've here collected, I have a collection of resources that you can use as you start thinking about preparing your talk. The great thing about doing this kind of talk, especially now, I actually did a TED-style talk at the first conference that I organized at Villanova, but it was in 2012, and at that time there weren't these resources didn't exist. So you're lucky, because since you know, in the last few years, a lot of people have really thought deeply about what makes a successful presentation. And there's even a book called Talk Like TED. And then there's the curator of TED has made a talk himself about what makes a successful talk. He has an interview in the Harvard Business Review about what makes a successful TED Talk. That's Chris Anderson. Nancy Duarte did a TED Talk about the secret structure of good talks, and she looked at Steve Jobs and Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, and Steve Jobs when he was introducing the iPhone, and she like systematically looked at what made those talks successful and found patterns that she shares during this talk, which I found really interesting. And then there are also good resources for preparing a talk, including Presentation Zen. It's a blog that talks about presentation styles, and you can learn a lot just by reading that. But this is a start of some of the materials that will let you know about as you start thinking about your talk. And so in terms of thinking about how to structure it, it's always good to start with your problem, like to think about what is the problem that your thing, that your innovation is seeking to address. And then to talk about the action, like what did you do to help address the problem? What did you do that's innovative? What's worth sharing? And don't feel that you don't, like, I think I would encourage you, to the extent that you do have pain points or you struggled with this or you've evolved, you know, it's evolved over time, to talk about that, because I think that, you know, change is always hard, and to the extent that the audience can know that it wasn't easy for you either, you know, that you struggled with this and that you iterated, and that, you know, one thing about innovation is it doesn't happen, you know, overnight. It's an iterative process, and we learn through all our experiences. We take that back through the feedback loop, right, and then we change what we're doing based on the feedback. And so to the extent that you have pain points, that you've struggled with this, that you changed because of student evaluations or obstacles that you faced, feel free to talk about that and make that part of your presentation. And then to the extent that there is evidence proving it, that would be great. And then this last point about positivity and a good vision kind of relates to what I want to talk about on the next slide. But basically, we'd like for the talks to all be positive and encouraging, in terms of encouraging people to innovate and try new things, rather than taking a critical look at legal education, which a lot of, you know, it could be criticized for a long period of time. We all know that. So with respect to that, to the extent, so I would suggest, if you can in your talk, to not necessarily talk about legal education negatively and about everything that it lacks, but just kind of have a positive vision. That's what I have to say about that. You're not going to need to introduce yourself during your talk. We'll do that. So we'll introduce you, and we'll give the affiliation, and it will be online as well when the videos are online. And then, yeah, we don't have to talk generally about all the problems facing legal education. Like the assumption is that the people in this audience know that there's a problem, and that's why they're looking at the videos, and that's why they're attending the conference. So in terms of next steps, what we did last year, which I think was pretty successful, is we organized so we didn't have a theme, as you saw when we did the call for talks. We didn't have any theme for the conference. So what happened is there's a lot of talks that came in and on a lot of different subjects, and now the job is to figure out how to organize them for the conference itself. And I've come up with some ideas that I wanted to share with you. And this is all, of course, subject to revision by everyone. But I thought that maybe we could organize around a few major themes. And I'll let you know what I'm thinking. And there's a lot of, some people aren't, you haven't heard about some of the talks yet because some people aren't on this call, so I'll try to help with that. But basically, one idea that I had in terms of a theme could be student formation. So we have a talk that Warren is going to give on how to be the best law student. We have the talk about by Shannon Salter on student success and how to engage students. I mean, that one actually could go in one or two places. All right, let me tell you the general themes, and then you guys can tell me where you think you fit. But one idea I had is student formation. Another one is applying legal theory to legal education. And excuse me, applying learning theory to legal education. A third could be flipping a law school classroom. A fourth is the art and craft of law teaching. We had that topic last year, so I'm thinking there, like Michael Colatrella talked about what design helped them to learn about teaching, and then we have Mark Edwards talking about charts, and Mike and Seaman, who's not on this call, but talking about graphics and how to use graphics. So that was what I think about in terms of art and craft of law teaching. And another topic I was thinking of is called New Ways to Teach Old Stuff. And I know we have to refine the title, but that's another idea. And that would be like Lexi Freeman talking about this critical race course and how it's like a new way of teaching old things, and maybe some of the legal writing people who spoke today, like the Rewrite Loop, Nancy Millar, Julie Gunnagle, in terms of needing the speed in legal writing. And then another topic is law teaching in the 21st century. And there I was thinking of Susan Mart in terms of preparing 21st century researchers, as you were saying earlier, and then Shawn Jansen, the future of law practice. Okay, so let me go back over. Oh, and then all right, so the topics, and then, okay, and then the last one is technology in legal education, or teaching with technology. We can use one of the topics. So basically what I'm thinking is, in terms of pods, that we would collectively come up with titles for ways to group the different talks, and then we can have you guys work together to refine your talks so that you can practice among yourselves. It's like a natural way to group people and then have you guys practice. Another alternative way of going about it would be to see whether there's any people who are in the same region, like who, if there's a group from DC and they decide that they all want to practice together because they can get together physically and practice, or like the group from Arizona Summit, it sounds like there's a few you might want to get practice in that way. But so there's an idea about creating pods for the presentation, and then we could either use those pods also for practice, or we could create different groups for practicing. But that's the idea in terms of going forward. And then, as I said, some people who participated last year have said that they would be willing to coach people if anyone feels like they need guidance or help, feedback on their talk. And what we'll do over the next few weeks is to work in small groups refining our talk. So we can start practicing, after you've had a chance to figure out what you want to say, then get together with groups of people and then start practicing. And then interspersed over the next few weeks between now and the conference, we could have either maybe 1 or 2 webinars just to help answer questions as people are preparing. So that is, that's the idea in terms of next steps. And then the format for the conference, it's still flexible, so I'd like to hear feedback from everyone on that. To give you a little bit of background about last year, so last year the conference was a Friday. Everyone arrived on Thursday evening. We were able to get into the room very late, like 5:30 or something, and people were able to do short rehearsals, so maybe 2 minutes each of their talk, so they can get comfortable with the space, they could test the equipment, and then we arrived the next morning and everyone gave their talk within 1 day. So we started early in the morning around 8 o'clock, and we went through to around 6 o'clock, and then had a cocktail reception afterward. For this year's conference, we have a little bit more flexibility because we have the room reserved both for Thursday and the Friday. So we could decide as a group how we want to do this. We could start giving talks on Thursday and then finish up on Friday and maybe break earlier than 6. Or we could do the same thing where we have rehearsals on Thursday, have a dinner on Thursday night, and then have the whole conference on Friday. So that's just something to think about, and we can talk about it. Or we can, through email, try to figure figure out what to do about that structuring. And then the only other thing, so let me go back to this, because I think it's important to figure out like how, if everyone likes those ideas about the different categories for how to organize the talk. So let me go over them again. One is flipping a law school course. Second is applying legal theory, learning theory, to legal education. 3 is student formation. 4 is either teaching with technology or technology and legal education, something along those lines. A 5th is new ways to teach old stuff. A 6th is the art and craft of law teaching. And 7 is law teaching in the 21st century. We might be able to combine law teaching in the 21st century with technology and legal education. But,
or new ways to teach old stuff.
Right. We'd like to try to get it so it's, more or less even in terms of how many people are in each of the groups, but we probably won't have an even distribution. But what do people think? Do you feel like you fit into one of those categories? Maybe I should say that. Or does anyone feel like they don't fit into one of those categories?
This is Tina Stark. Where would you put me?
I'm not sure where you would put me.
Okay, so Tina, I was thinking of you.
Maybe the art and...
I was thinking of, actually I didn't write you down. So I hadn't figured that out yet.
Warm and cuddly, exclusive.
It could be student formation though.
What exactly is student formation? What are you thinking that is?
I was thinking about like teaching professionalism. So people who we didn't hear about today, Jill Engel and one of her students, Courtney, I forget her last name, are both going to give presentations, and it's talking about how to help students figure out the course for their career based on how you teach them and how you ask them for reflection and things throughout the education process. So it's like the act, I guess, of becoming a lawyer and thinking about what kind of lawyer you want to be. So that would be also, I was thinking, Warren Binford, how to be the world's best law student, and possibly like Deborah Cohen in terms of unlearning, could either go there or could go in the group of applying learning theory to legal education. Does that make sense, the student formation? We could call it something else, clearly, since it needs to be defined. We need to call it something else. Becoming a lawyer or something like that?
Student development, or?
Doesn't really tell me what people are taught and what's the topic.
Okay. So we have to work on that.
It could be that.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost someone there. Hello? It's coming in muddled. I can't hear you.
This is Deb. I'll try again. Because I was not sure where I would fit based on what you said student formation is. But from what you described, it sounds to me like it's the path to professionalism, or the path, right. the transition path to practice, or.
Yes, that's good. Something like that, yeah.
This is, oh, sorry, Michelle. This is Chris T Shoni, and I'm not sure where I would fit either. the categories would be new ways to teach old stuff, but I'm really not talking about old stuff. I'm talking about teaching what we do by adding things. And I guess law teaching in the 21st century, maybe Shawn Jansen's been circulating legal skills for the 21st century, but I'm really talking about teaching those skills. So I don't know, what did you think for mine?
Right, those were the two areas that I was thinking about for you.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to want to be in a category of old stuff.
Right. So we need to come up with a better title. We're all really creative and innovative, so I'm sure we'll come up with something. But that was like my quick.
So instead of saying legal skills, I mean, can we put advocacy or persuasion or something like that in there? Because it really feels like some of this is assuming the role of lawyer, or or moving towards advocacy, or moving towards the actual lawyer's role.
Yeah. So this would be becoming a lawyer.
The one thing about putting something like advocacy in a title is it assumes that everybody's going to be a litigator. And I think a title should, unless nothing is applicable to transactions, perhaps a broader title.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here, Tina. Here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I always think of advocacy as a synonym for persuasion, but that's fine. I mean, it's representation.
It's not. Advocacy.
It's fine.
So moving towards the lawyer's role, something like that. And you know what we can do? I can type this up and send it around, and we can all work on it over the next few weeks, giving comments.
Maybe it's lawyering. Maybe it's lawyering or something.
Yeah.
Because that would.
Well, I mean, pathways to practice is something that it might be, because that's what we're talking about, all different ways of practice in the transition.
Yeah, mine is more about teaching. This is Chris. Mine's more about teaching, so maybe it works. I'm just not sure.
Well, this is Deb again, and while other people didn't want to talk about old things to new, since I'm talking about prior learning and stuff, I'm happy to go in that category if it fits, because I'm talking about taking the old stuff and using it or not using it effectively.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And with that group, I mean, of course, we can come up with a better title, but I was thinking of, like, Olaf Schaefer. Is that where you would, and maybe Nancy Millar?
This is Paula. I think that I thought I fit into student formation and then past to practice, but I also could fit elsewhere. I'm flexible. I like the past to practice category, since I kind of frame mine as preparing people for practice.
Okay, good. Okay, so it sounds like we might not need new ways to teach old stuff, and people can find a place somewhere else. Like Nancy Millar, where would you think you would fit? Or did you find a place?
I'm not sure. I think of different places. I mean, yeah, so I'm flexible.
Okay. So one way of doing this is I could just send an email. Ben has been great, and he created an email list for all of us from the Gmail account. So I can send an email with the tentative group, the tentative ideas for pods, and everyone can figure out if they fit into one of them, and if not, can propose a different category or a renaming of an existing category. Does that work?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. And then I guess the question would be, would you guys prefer to practice and work within the group of people on your topic, or would you prefer to do something that's more geographical? So there are some people who would never be in a geographic group. But there are a lot of people from DC, for example. So I can see that.
I'm in DC. I'm happy to do a DC group. I even have a colleague at Georgetown who's presenting too. So.
Right.
She said she'd coach me.
Yeah, and she, it's Jill Smith who presented last year, and she was the one who suggested the geographic groups.
Right.
Because she got together with someone who was in DC last year, and that helped her a lot, she said, in the practicing part of it. So we could do a combination. Those of you who are in DC or who naturally have people close by geographically and want to practice with them, you can do that, and then the others can practice within their groups, within their pods. So we're coming up on 4. So the last thing I want to talk about is social media. So I really am trying to learn how to maximize social media and how to use it as a way to get ideas out there. And so I just want to encourage you all to start now, if you're on Twitter or have Facebook accounts, LinkedIn, any of them, to start talking about the conference and talking about your ideas. And we'll do that, and we have a lot of ways that we can help you with that. You know, Ben has been really good about tweeting about the stuff that we're doing at the conference and with the talks, and so he'd be happy to continue to do that if you send things to him. Or LegalED has a blog as part of the site, and it doesn't get a lot of activity. So if any of you would be interested in writing a post for the blog about preparing or about the topic of your talk, whatever it is, we'd be happy to promote that as well. Think about promoting it through blogs that you're already contributing to or listservs that you're on, especially as we get closer to the event. We found that last year, so last year's event was simulcast, so people could watch it online as we were presenting it. And the LegalED website had 1,000 visitors that day alone. So there were a lot of people who didn't physically travel to the conference, but who watched it live from around the world. And so we want, the reason that we're trying to start promoting it now is so that we can build up that audience and people know to, you know, to mark their calendars and think about attending virtually. And just to finish there with, if anyone has any ideas about how we can promote it through social media or any other media, you know, in that way, feel free to let me and Ben know. But I don't want to keep everyone longer than 4, because that's what we had said. We were going to spend, that's the amount of time we wanted to spend on this talk. I just want to finish by, again, thanking the Uncommon Individual Foundation and also thanking American, because they're so generous to be doing this. Last year, they hosted the conference. I was a visiting professor at American. This year, I'm not. I'm back at my home institution. But they felt so strongly about the success of the conference that they agreed to organize it, even though I'm not there. So, so special thanks to them for doing that. And I just want to let you know that right as we were going on, right as this conference call was starting, I got an email from the special events coordinator at American saying that she was able to secure a block of rooms at a hotel. So I'll send that information to you guys either today. I have one question about it, so I might hold off until early next week. But you should be getting an email with hotel reservation information within the next days. So thanks again to everyone. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your willingness to take this on and to do a conference in a new way, and hopefully we'll be as successful or even more successful than we were last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Michelle, can I ask you a couple questions? This is Chris.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a an audience in the room when we tape? I have no idea. Or are we talking to an empty room?
No, we're talking to a room.
Right.
you could do a great job if you could help to encourage some of your colleagues to come.
Sure.
Last year, we had a few people from American. I don't know if there was anyone from Georgetown, but I want to do a better job at promoting it within the DC schools. So you could help with that. That would be great. So last year there was an audience. The room wasn't full, and the other thing that I asked everyone last year is that they stay for the whole conference.
Sure.
But they were in the audience as well. But it definitely means a lot when you have people who you're talking to. It makes the talk much more authentic.
Sure.
And I think from a speaking perspective, it's much more comfortable to be talking to someone rather than like just a camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Second question is it possible that I could have 8 minutes and Ruth Ann could also have 8?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I assume that you were both giving separate talks, but
yeah, I definitely feel like I need the 8.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great.
And the other thing that that you should know is that we're not going to like cut you off after 8 minutes. And I should have said that earlier, but maybe not. Maybe people need to practice as if it's 8 minutes. But
yeah.
I just want you to know, like, I don't want you to think that, you know, if you haven't finished your whole thing after 8 minutes, that, you know, the video is going to stop recording.
Okay,
Like,
that's
a few
helpful.
of the talks last year, like, went on to like 10 minutes. And especially in the format, it's really weird, but you could practice and practice and practice, and it can be an 8-minute talk. But then when you give it live, it's 10 minutes.
Sure, sure. I totally understand that. And then, are there samples on the LegalED site? Is that where I would access that?
There are, but Michelle, yours isn't running for some reason because I keep trying to get. I really want to see the graphics in action, and
yeah,
I keep hitting play, and it just won't play.
Okay, I'll ask Ben to look into that. Ben, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am, Michelle.
All right, would you look into that?
Yeah.
It must be a Vimeo, or I guess it's Vimeo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, we'll check that.
Okay, can you tell me what program you use too for that?
So are you talking about my talk that I gave last year at the Igniting Law Teaching Conference, like why law schools must change?
No, the Pathos, the classical rhetoric one.
Oh, okay. So that I used, it's a program called Video Scribe.
Okay.
And you can get like a week for free, but it's a paid subscription otherwise.
Okay.
And I just wanted to tell you ahead of time, like the few things I learned by doing it. One is it's really helpful if you record the audio before you do the screen, the video scribe on the screen, like the whiteboarding part. So you so you can time the whiteboard to coincide with your voice.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
And then the other thing is there's a lot of it's kind of a steep learning curve, but Video Scribe, since I did it, they've actually created a lot of useful like training videos that are available on YouTube. You know, they're available on YouTube. I would definitely encourage you to look at some of those before you start, and then maybe do a practice run, and then go back and look at some more, so that you know, kind of that whole process of learning by doing, I think.
Yeah, and it might not be appropriate for this, but I was just curious. Okay, but yes, but I wanted to see it. So, all right, so that's really useful.
Is that the one that's not running well?
Yeah, that's the one that I was having. Right, I really wanted to see how you did Pathos.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Ben, that is on Vimeo. That one.
Okay. This is very useful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much for agreeing to do it. I'm really excited.
So are we.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Chris, do you have a second that I could call you, or?
Yes. All right, I'm signing off. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, I'll call you, Chris.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Okay, Michelle, I'm going to stop recording the presentation now.